I think one interesting thing for Immortals to split is that Huni's had more deaths than usual. Like, he usually dies a lot, but it's really not been that great of a split for Huni, and Immortals hasn't really missed much of a beat. I think Wild Turtle has been really under the radar because Pobelter's been the one getting a lot of recognition. He's playing solid once again, and they are able to play some varying styles. I'll be super interested to see if they go with more stuff like Rise Top and more carries for Huni, or if they just go super standard in this first game against Cloud9.
Well, we'll have to have a look here as fans are actually through. Can't see them quite yet, but can inform you guys. Braum and Bard over on the Immortals side to start things off, and Rise and Vlad, as you can see there on the red team. So pretty standard stuff so far. Rek'Sai, though, banned away from Meteos, but actually kind of some respect there from Rainover.
Yeah, interesting how they would throw that Rek'Sai ban out with the first pick. Having Rise and Vladimir banned by Cloud9 are really just banning some of the S-tier mid laners. In the Cloud9 Team Liquid series, we were seeing 4 and 5 mid lane bans sometimes thrown out here. And I mean, Cloud9's still on that train with banning 3 power pick mid laners super early. Question is, what does that leave for Immortals here with that first pick?
And I've noticed that a lot of these power mid laners kind of leave Victor open a lot, which is definitely a champion that both Pobelter and Jensen are comfortable with. Not sure if they want to blind pick it though, although it's relatively safe in that situation. Yeah. Who are you going to flush us Rumble, but who knows what their first pick's going to be from Immortals.
Yeah, I personally feel like Victor's the best available mid laner still, but it's just so uncommon that you'd see that first pick. The Karma has really been the first pick if it's not banned for most teams in the North American LCS, and Immortals is no different here.
Yep, could play it mid of course with Pobelter, but likely the support for Adrian. So we'll see how the draft moves on Cloud9 now with 2 picks to potentially take. Could have the Victor if they want to give it over early, but usually expecting a jungler plus 1 other. We'll see what Cloud9 have here for their first round of picks.
Yeah, and we're back in with the fancy champ select, obviously. The Karma pick shouldn't have caught Cloud9 by surprise. I think they should actually take Victor early here, only because it's been Pobelter's far and away best champion. And then one other pick would, they could very safely just pick an 80 carry here as well if they really wanted to, without giving too much away for their team composition. But clearly a lot of discussion going on as they're taking quite a long time to decide these 2 picks.
Yep. Sneaky, of course, a very strong utility player, so we'll take a utility 80 carry. Looks like Siva is going to be the lock-in. Thresh also locked in there for Bunny Fufu, so really real comfort picks for the Cloud9 bottom lane.
Yeah, at the same time, there were 2 support bans already thrown with the Braum and the Bard, and Karma had been picked away early, so they don't want to give too much away. That kind of tells you they don't really have many power picks in this particular matchup. No marksman had been picked or banned on the board, so Sivir would be the highest tier there. And Thresh is pretty much just a comfort pick for Bunny Fufu.
Yep, seems just fine. Probably comfortable in the potential Karma plus 80 carry matchup, so Cloud9, if nothing else, will likely split that lane. Immortals, though, 25 seconds to line up these next few picks. They could also take the Victor as well if we do think it's as important as these teams might indicate. Definitely a pick for Pobelter, but maybe jungle here for Rainover. Rek'Sai banned away is actually going to go to Nidalee. Yeah,
a lot of options, really. We've seen Meteos wait on jungle counter picks fairly frequently. He could still go with something simple like Graves or Gragas. The picks for Immortals line up for a pretty good poke comp so far, but beyond that, can't really tell much else.
Yep, I like the Jhin there. So while Turtle going to take kind of the other big utility carry, Ashe was available, but no 80 carry wants it this time around, it feels like. And Cloud9, I guess who do they want to give the counter pick to is the next logical thing. Impact maybe will take a safe champion here. Trundle and Shen. In fact, all the top laners are available if he wants to take that. But maybe they take the Victor now. They just say, you know what, Pobelter, if you want to take it, Jensen's comfortable with the counter pick. Let's just kind of get the next few picks going.
I think it's so dangerous when you're picking a blind top laner against Huni, just because he seems to have more top lane counter picks lined up than almost any other top laner. Even though he hasn't had the same level of split he had in the spring, he's still got that threat. So I can see why Cloud9 is trying to be as non-committal as possible with these early picks, but they have to commit something right now, whether it's a mid laner or a top laner. You'd expect a jungler and a mid to be picked right here. Maybe Gragas and Victor. Let's see.
There's Gragas hovered over, so it'll be a pretty easy champion for Meteos to take, and they will take the Trundle, actually. Kind of been the king of top laners in a lot of ways, at least on this patch.
It has been, but we've also seen other people get successful picks off against the Trundle. Swain could have a lot of effectiveness. Some of the more damaging AP champions can do fairly well against him as well. Rumble is still on the board. It's something Huni's played a lot of, so I still feel like Immortals has a lot of options. They can flex that Karma through support or mid lane, so really, they can decide their entire team composition right now.
Yep, and Immortals are going to have to finish things off, but I think Cloud9 were trying to figure out which counter pick they wanted. They seem to have given it to mid lane. Let's see what Immortals have in answer to round out the rest of their draft. Looks like they're flicking through maybe that Victor that we expected to go early, but Immortals clearly not needing to prioritize it early. If possability gets it this late, Jensen's counterpick better be pretty good, because this is very obvious from Immortals.
Yeah, I mean, missed out a lot of the predictions so far. I thought Victor would have a much higher priority here. Finally, if they did go with the Victor in the Rumble, we'd have something, but they actually swapped the Karma to mid lane, throw the Rumble top. Like, these are pretty bold champion selects from both of these teams, trying to switch things up fairly substantially.
Well, I mean, there's a very tiny chance at Zyra mid, but I'm not going to guess it would be.
It could be.
Technically, Immortals still playing a couple mind games here, but I do like the Rumble there for Huni, a champion that I think he can get some traction with in the 1v1, but we'll have to see. Cloud9, though, have to answer with their last pick.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that Trundle-Rumble matchup swing in a couple different directions. If the Trundle gets really far ahead, gets a lot of lifesteal, he just runs straight over the Rumble. But Rumble can obviously make a lot more plays, especially around level 6. And if you snowball ahead, Trundle can't really do much if he can't outstat you.
Well, what's the pick here for Cloud9? They've really used this red side pick to their advantage, it feels like. You can see Jensen there with Coach Reaper right behind him, clearly discussing what this last pick's going to be.
Yeah, they can say with a decent amount of certainty that it's going to be the Karma in the mid lane. Twisted Fate has seen a small resurgence so far this week, and this will give them a lot of pressure between Gragas, Sivir, and Twisted Fate as far as trying to make plays around the map.
Well, I think Jensen, definitely a strong Twisted Fate player, but maybe having the wrong kind of flashbacks to the Liquid series, because when he played TF's a great champion, lots of control, but very easy to pick on, especially with no summoners. Rainover's Nidalee, not as brutal as a Gragas maybe early on, but going to have to definitely make sure this mid lane goes well for Jensen in the early stages. Yeah, I mean, the Karma gank support is super good in the mid lane. If they ever get Jensen's flash and Rainover is there without meteors to counter gank, possability could just flash to get the root onto Jensen, and that would line up beautifully for Nidalee Spears. So those ganks can come early and often if Immortals want to. So while the Twisted Fate will open up a lot of opportunities in the mid game, like you say, Cloud9 is going to make sure they can protect Jensen and make it so he doesn't get shut down. And again, we talked about teamwork. This is a great team to test the teamwork for Cloud9 early on with the Twisted Fate. That being said, though, double TP for Immortals, Rumble Karma, very quirky composition, but I like it. Yeah, it is definitely quirky. A lot of ability power for Immortals. It's basically quadra AP, so expect some magic resist stacking from the side. Aegis is coming? The other team. Let's hope so. C9 and Immortals fans are loud on Twitter, so now it's time to turn up the volume, get on social media, and tweet out the hashtag IMT win or the hashtag C9 win to make your voice heard. It is our match of the week, of course. We imagine there's a lot of people behind it. We'll have to hear your thoughts out there in the Twitterverse, so let us know. Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of a crazy day. I was expecting some best-of-3 series from the COG TSM matchup. We got to see the other stream between Energy and Fox. Those were both series that we could maybe expect going a couple games. This is another one that I expect to go 3 games, but you never know. We had that crazy long Friday night. Since then, it's been nothing but sweeps. Well, we'll have to see, because Cloud9 and Immortals will take to the Rift for game number 1. Cloud9, can they bounce back after the earlier loss to Liquid and Immortals? We only have one question. They've lost to one team. Cloud9 is not that team. Can they continue the streak they seem to have all through summer? Everyone just going to fan out now, though. Oh, bit of a meeting, though. Cloud9 actually grouping up together. Going to try and get themselves some traction around this blue area. Yeah, this could be actually fairly dangerous depending on how far they want to invade through. They were going for some early invade wards, but they decide to pull back when Impact gets to spot Huni. They're hesitant of a trap being laid, which is, I would say, worthwhile. Sneaky and Bunny Fufu. I'm not sure if it was Sneaky and Bunny or Sneaky and Smoothie, but they had a mishap early in the final Team Liquid game on Friday night. To avoid that. There was a lot of Jin Brom aggression, which I think we've talked about for Liquid all weekend long now. Looks like everyone's just going to chill out, put their wards down, and Sneaky, hanging out in the mid lane with Bunny, might be looking for that blind lane swap. Yeah, and I also think it's quite important for Cloud9, just as in a general thing, to be able to salvage this week. Because coming in, all eyes were on Immortals versus Cloud9. That was the hype matchup, the Jensen possability rivalry, the constant improvement of Cloud9 versus Immortals still being very good. And Cloud9, because they lost to Team Liquid and now are up against an 8-1 team, could very well end the week 0-2, which would be a pretty big disaster as far as trying to move towards the top of the standings with teams like TSM staying undefeated. Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, they're pretty safe right now where they are, but more losses could start to threaten as the other teams crawl up towards them. C9, though, continuing to jungle away. Meteos and Impact going going to double jungle together. As we did have that swap in place. So Huni going to get what he can up here in that top lane, but Sneaky and Bunny are going to zone him off, and we'll continue our standard lane swap.
Yeah, I'm curious when Huni is going to give up on that swap, because this is actually really interesting. There's no jungle assistance. They could maybe get a flash of Adrian, maybe a kill. Yep.
Going to force one out there. I mean, good flash from Adrian, but nice pressure there from C9 to force that. Yeah,
this also means, though, that Huni can stick around for experience, because a lot of the times the top laner is pushed out of a 1v2 immediately, since it's a quick threat of a 3-man dive. Huni has been able to pick up basically a full level experience, but they get Adrian's flash out of it. Adrian was doing that invade because he didn't expect 2 people to be in the jungle there.
Well, Huni actually hits level 2 now, so soaking a lot of XP. Actually has 2 CS to his name as well. Harpoons one away as he skills that up at level 2. Impact getting also some XP down here, but has to be ultra careful of a potential dive. Right now, though, just trying to soak what he can. No CS just yet, but at least he's getting some experience and has hit level 2 as well. So really interesting to see this top laner stick around for so long. Huni's actually still here.
Yeah, and they get the ward over the wall to push him back, but definitely not your standard lane swaps. They were basically hoping that the top laners would immediately respect a 3-man dive, and now it would actually be coming from Immortals. So Impact is going to have to back away, and quickly.
Yep, red buff there as well. Speed's going to land. Rainover's going to chase him in. Impact probably doesn't have to flash, but the Jinstein might force it out. He will flash. Nice play from Immortals.
Yeah, just the tail end of Wild Turtle's route was able to catch him there. But he can quickly teleport to the other side, and now we have standard lane swap. Just Impact has no summon spells.
We're starting to see a lot of this, actually. Top lane is using that teleport late to try and get themselves into the lane swap. Perhaps an adaptation as we move through how we expect these lane swaps to be performed, but regardless, everything's actually on time for now. So people are starting to get a bit more movement around level 1, but as you said, just some summoners burnt early on, so nothing too crazy.
Yeah, and no focus early on in the mid lane, which I think is good for Jensen. He wants to be able to farm this one out a little bit early. He obviously both Twisted Fate and Karma have good gank assist when the jungler is coming. But Jensen's going to have to be careful now. Speak the devil.
Oh, yeah, there's the 3-man snare in. That's an immediate flash from Jensen. Eats a spear as well, but burns the summoner. He cannot give up a kill there.
Yeah, I'm really interested, though, how Pobelter decided to flash into that play, because the guaranteed kill would to be send the 3 guys, get the flash, maintain Pobelter's flash, and then on the double back, you would then be able to flash for the Karma W and get the guaranteed run on Jensen. Now, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because he'll have to Karma shield himself to get in the range for the W, and that could potentially give Jensen time to gold card and walk away and make that second game less of a sure thing. But they still get flash for flash, and depending on who's there next, there is danger.
Yeah, we'll have to see just how much pressure's thrown that mid lane, but good little roam there from Immortals. At least gets a summoner out of the deal. We've swapped back, though, as Sneaky and Bunny Fufu are now down in their bottom lane. But it looks like the duo from Immortals still top, so you could just see some turrets traded here.
Yeah, and speaking of ganks, like, this is another thing. Pobelter burned his flash, so now he's in danger of a Gragas gank, but there's such good ward coverage from Immortals that they're probably going to be okay. They had warded that side, and wards just expired, actually, in the blue buff jungle of Cloud9, which would have started the gank from Gragas in that area as well. So even though Meteos has the, quote, sure thing gank with the body slam flash on a flashless mid laner, he couldn't get there because the wards would have spotted him.
Yeah, great vision there from Immortals, making sure they protect Pobelter, who's actually going to go back relatively early, get himself that Chalice of Harmony. So Athene's mid lane Karma, we've seen a decent amount of this.
We've seen it. It hasn't won very much. The mid lane Karma that goes full damage has been a lot more successful, but you never know. He's going to do it. The new Athenes for this season can heal on the shield application. It's much more utility focused than you would expect out of a mid laner, but that is one direction to go as a mid lane Karma. I've actually kind of been waiting to see just a high income mid lane Karma go something like Athenes and then Ardent Sensor and like a Locket or something, and literally just be a high gold support. But that's probably bad. I can dream about it though.
Well, we'll keep an eye out. You know what, Pobelter, maybe your dreams will come true today, Jat. Huni does take the gold there in the top lane. Turret Cloud9 push the bottom outer as well. So 2 turrets apiece as our standard lane swap continues. Turrets just getting traded here as Jensen thumbs up what he can. He's gone back for himself as well, and will be going Rod of Aegis as his first item. So a little more normal on the Twisted Fate build.
Yeah, and he needs a little bit of extra health as well, just in case he's going to get ganked. Pretty subdued early game, though, as they continue to swap back these lanes, actually. C9, clever pink ward by Meteos, as he expected something to be there based on the way that Huni backed off as Krugs have been taken.
Yep, bit of a difference in jungle styles. here as we do early Trackers Knife for Rainover, but more damage on the Hunter's Potion for Meteor. So level 6 now looking to make an impact. Bunny Fufu against near this mid lane, but Huni actually a potential target. 3 members of Immortals though. This looks like Huni been wondering a lot actually. Going over to the blue buff right now that Rainover's trying to steal, but this looks like Immortals side of the jungle right now.
Yep, and it's because of the strong side, weak side of the map. There was 4 people on Immortals over on this side. Since the lanes have swapped back, they're basically trading where they can become strong. But I would say Immortals is pretty far ahead on tempo here, and we could be seeing a little bit of a turret race here. A lot of times it's a game of chicken of neither team wanting to back up first, but there's a pretty substantial early advantage here by Immortals. So they're already 4 men pushing that turret. Cloud9 still stuck taking blue.
Yeah, 7 not bad, but Jensen going to go ahead and get that blue. You can see Immortals already on it, so this is going down awfully quickly. 30% health left or so, and yeah, C9 behind on the play. And Rainover here as well. This push could just keep going. Yeah,
look at the pings going down right here. If C9 goes back right now, that would be the way they stop it because they're pretty far behind. Or they could just trade all the way up into inhibitors. A lot of this does depend on the size of the minion waves. And both teams are going all in right here.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting how Immortals isn't sending anyone back either, so it could actually just be a straight-up inhibitor trade.
All right, well, we're going to look for something because Immortals have now officially broken the bottom inhib turret. They're onto that inhib, but Cloud9 are starting to pick up pace here in this little base race.
You would think they'd set someone up. They're actually pinging
Nexus turret,
baby.
All right, well, Immortals, they're going to get the first inhib, but Cloud9 should be able to take this as well. Immortals are done.
Why not keep going? Shield on the minions.
2 back now.
Yeah. It's 9 minutes in.
Yep.
They're not going to get this, I don't think. Oh my god.
It looks like they might. Bunny Fufu! No, he's not going to get that.
It's getting close.
Minion's still there. They have to protect it. Cloud9 do take the inhib, and Sneaky and Impact still pushing. C9 going to kick them out of their base. Cloud9 just going to push a wave in, but what a wacky trade.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't actually get that turret, it will regenerate, but because it's 9 minutes in, that does increase the chance of a super minion wave actually killing it. So that requires a higher burden for a full-time defender on the side of Cloud9 than it does on the side of Immortals, since it does take a while for those super minions to kill through. 9-minute double inhib trade.
I mean,
match of the week, let's go.
Yep. I mean, we talk about the macro game of both these teams. Not how I expected the first game to start, but Meteor and Bunny Fufu might try and break parity. Peek in, have a look at the red buff. Maybe thinking about possability, but don't go for the gank in mid lane instead. You talked about a subdued early game. I think we're going to have a little bit more chill out time, Jat, because there's an awful lot of farming to do in these side lanes.
Yeah, and this is actually going to be really tricky for Impact to clear. He started with the Spectre Scowl because he was expecting to lane against Rumble a little bit.
Little did he know.
Little did he know Tiamat would be awesome right now. That's a 2,000 health super minion, and Impact is doing roughly 120 damage per auto attack. So that's 18 swings.
That's a lot.
To get that super minion down. If that. I mean, that's not counting the armor and MR on that thing.
It hurts too. You can look at Impact. He tanked it for a little bit, thought about it again.
Yeah.
Turret's going to help him out now, but oh man.
Meanwhile, Huni on the other side with the Proto Belt is clearing much more easily. So highly favorable currently for Immortals. Huni's going to have a lot more freedom, whereas Impact is trapped in base for pretty much the duration of that inhib being there.
Yep, those Rumble buffs helping out the minion clearing. So able to do that pretty quickly. C9, they're going to start this Drake.
Yeah, and because of the turret or the minion discrepancy, Immortals can actually send everyone here. Huni would have a window to run down, and Cloud9 has to respect that. There's no way Impact can assist this. If he teleports down, C9 loses the Nexus turret.
Yep, might have been a window to take the Drake, but C9 kind of reset their map first. Sneaky's actually hanging mid lane right now, as Jensen wandered over to try and threaten around that Drake area. Impact now with the Tiamat, so things get a little bit better.
Success, he can actually splash on that mega minion right there. You see the health, 2,400, 100 armor.
It's a rough time, the top laners today. The most difficult of lane swaps. Although to be fair, they'll at least be getting a lot of farm. Well, they're definitely impressed that Huni's able to clear that much faster. Impact, you can see just kiting a minion back. And now another super ready to go.
Yeah, and it's also eating the wave for them a little bit in the mid lane. That can be good and bad. As long as Impact is able to farm, that actually means fewer minions coming through to full belter. But now this is what we're talking about. Immortals, because Huni pushed out the wave so easily, can very easily go for Ocean.
Well, there's the Drake over. Immortals cleanly picked that one up. Cloud9 looking for an exit kill, but aren't going to find it. It's been a lot of map movement this game. After our initial game of turret chicken. And we're still even, all things considered. Yes, the positions are different. A Drake over Immortals is kind of the only real lead in this game, and the next one will be Infernal, but the Inhib should be back by then.
Yeah.
Very curious to see how this one develops, because it's been a fun 12 minutes.
I know. Or if they can trade them again. It's something that almost never matters, but actually mattered a lot in this game between having a Trundle versus a Rumble in lanes, is super minions at this point in the game have 100 armor and negative 30 magic resistance. So that essentially means they have they take half damage from physical, but they take extra damage from magic damage. So even if you think that like Trundle and Rumble put out the same amount of damage, Rumble's going to be doing over double damage to the minions when compared to Trundle, and that is how they've gotten so much extra time on the map from Huni.
And it is starting to convert actually into a few more advantages. With this Rift Herald going over to Immortals would be another little thing they could pick up here. Again, the extended lane swap played out in a funny way, but Immortals going to collect a Drake, and now the Rift Herald buff for Huni. Huge boon to his power in the 1v1, if we ever get there, because right now they've just been farming sideways. Sneaky, it's a bullet.
The forever freeze on those inhibitor lanes. Such a weird start to this game.
Yeah, and this is what happens when inhibs go down early. You pretty much just get a perma-freeze, which, again, if for farming is okay, yes, Huni has also been able to get a geographical advantage, but the gold lead's not there. It's just those objectives, and hard to count them just yet as far as overall gold goes. And I'm not really sure when these teams are interested in, actually fighting each other, because right now it's a whole lot of management.
Yeah, absolutely, and I really do believe as C9 actually managed to take.
Oh, Povelta! Big hook to the face. Stun card's gonna follow, but just some poke. They do get the turret though.
Good poke and turret. That equalized a little bit, but I really do believe the inhibitor trade at the start is almost the sole reason Immortals was able to get the Drake and the Rift Herald. You also noticed that Huni was doing a really cute thing there, basically killing the super minion with his proto belt, getting all the little bullets to hit it at once, so it just like basically eviscerates it. And Impact, he doesn't have the same tricks. Even with the Tiamat, it takes him way longer to clear these, but it's back. This is the final wave he has to clear.
Yep, very straightforward champion is the old Trundle. Just like to bash things with his club. He'll be okay. Passive kicks in. Impact gonna clear this out, and we'll kind of reset the very interesting looking map. First items have also been done, so all these 14 minutes of farming and minion management has led to Chalice done, Rod of Ages done there for Povelta and Jensen respectively. Huni with their Proto Belt you mentioned already, and now they're Haunting guys. And Ghostblade done for Jin with Sneaky and his Sivir almost puts up to Essence Reaver. So, arms race sort of complete. Everyone's gathering their resources. Maybe we have a mid lane scuffle here as Cloud9 going to try and clear out this siege.
Yeah, Jensen getting a decent farm advantage over Povelta. I think some of that is because the mid wave kept crashing around Impact and not as many minions streamed down the mid lane for Povelta to farm. Crazy little interactions we've seen here, but with Ghostblade being completed, with Fiends and Proto Belt being completed, I think Immortals is in the midst of a bit of a power spike since Sneaky is still working on his first major item. And you're looking to siege.
Well, can't get too crazy because Sin have plenty of ways to initiate. Jin ulti up though. There's the Equalizer going to try and siege it out. Meteos kind of forced to take it. Sneaky, just taking damage, almost goes down. But Immortals pretty successful there as Jensen eats the last bullet.
Man, that's dangerous right there. Sneaky just, maybe he was saying he was all right. He had the spell shield for the third shot, and by the time the fourth shot came through, nothing was going to make it through. But Immortals use their cooldowns and continue to siege. Now that the Sivir is gone, it's just the TF away.
Oh, Rainova eats a hook in the face, but no follow-up there from Bunny Fufu. C9 still clearing this out. This tower is pretty healthy still.
Yeah, and it is very difficult to siege against Twisted Fate and Sivir, because even if you knock one of them out, the other guy still has pretty tremendous wave clear. Sneaky also able to go down bottom and pick up a rather large minion wave. So I really wonder how long Immortals are going to stick with the siege, because they see Sivir, they decide to go for another round.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the poke comp, right? Kind of makes some sense, but they can't actually break this mid turret. C9 will hold that pivotal point in the map. Rainova, though, clearing out some pink wards, still looking to throw those spears out from the flanks. Does have Runic Echoes done. Looks like Rylai's might be next. Poke's hurting quite a lot, but looks like Immortals finally give up on their siege and C9 able to push that wave back out.
Yeah, and the farm is equalizing. I think the next Drake will be very telling on the overall outcome in this game, because with the inhibitors going down, it did just really stall out the game for 5 minutes. No one was ready for inhibitors to be going down. And if you ever played custom games of like what a 4v4 Summoner's Rift feels like, very slow.
Yeah.
Because basically, you have to farm, and that's what everyone does. They don't think about killing each other. So that's what happened when the inhibitor went down, is it just locked people into farming and basically turned it into a 4v4 game, and that's why we just didn't see any action.
Yeah, curiously, that's actually going to push up to a pretty curious start to this mid game, because everyone's again going to have their farm, have their first item secured. Drake up in 55 seconds, probably our first big point of action. No first blood yet either. Cloud9 have been playing a lot of these like very heavy macro game ones in particular.
Yeah.
They've been winning, but we'll see what happens here against the Immortals, who are no slouch on the macro front themselves.
It's really interesting because on Friday night, the game that Cloud9 did win against Team Liquid was the super sloggy macro game. And I think a lot of that was Team Liquid thinking, all right, they're not very good at macro, let's pick a split pusher, outscale, and win. And then it turned out that Cloud9 has actually improved heavily in that front. And then they actually ended up losing by getting overly aggressed on. But I think that's what's happening a little bit with Immortals right here is they are just kind of playing the macro game against Cloud9, and while it seems to have given them minor advantages with the Glimpse of the Void buff going over to Huni and the first Ocean Drake, as far as gold is considered, it hasn't given them anything real. And this first fight, unless there's a bunch of poke that goes down and allows the Ocean Drake to have an advantage, will be on even footing because the gold is very close.
So it should be, as Infernal Drake is now live. Cloud9, you can see, prepping vision for it, looking for a pick first off. Bunny Fufu again gets a minion, but donates the gold over to Sneaky.
It's like, hold on, let me get my Chargon stack off. I'm going to hook this.
I was ready for like some mad no-scope, like hook on flash play. Oh, Impact though,
oh,
dear. The first target flashes away. Zara ulti burnt though by Adrian. Ignite down as well. Impact lives this time, but Meteos back in. Rainover gonna get stunned up. He'll get hooked away. And first blood goes to Meteos.
Woo, and it's gonna continue. Here comes Huni.
That's Huni with the equalizer. Gonna ride in, look for that big Protobot. Protobot, they're getting locked up. Protobot straight into the back. And Sneaky's gonna be forced to flash out. Impact running for his life as Cloud9 have three low people on the front line. But that's a great exit there from Bunny Fufu.
That's why you give Bunny Thresh. He knows the angles. Impact and Meteos still have a little ways to run.
Take a TP in. That's Jensen gonna try and collapse, but it's actually not Protobot. And Huni can't turn it around. Huni doing too much damage, and now Impact maybe caught out of good position. He's going to die to Pobelta. Meteor's going to get caught as well. They tried to back. He gets over the wall, and Bunny Fufu saves him again. Oh, Adrian! He wants it, but he's going to get played out. Plants, not enough. And we're okay. Just a 2-for-1, I think, as the dust settles.
Yeah, perhaps the Drake can go over to Immortals, and they might be able to get the mid lane turret right here. Very chaotic beginning to that fight as Immortals burned a lot to get on Impact's ultimate, and then with no tank still in the fight, it allowed Huni to just kind of bulldoze in there on Rumble. And the power of a level 11 Rumble is pretty legendary. It used to be the thing you do with him for Drake fights. You can see Impact is really just caught out of position while the rest of Cloud9 is trying to set up a play, and that's a terrible start to the fight for Cloud9. So Meteos still then sees Rainover, and they get a perfect combo out. Even if the Thresh hook didn't land, Jensen had the gold card coming, but that means Huni can come in the backside. Actually has a pretty poor equalizer, but you can see how strong a level 11 Rumble is here, and it looked like he was about to clean up, if not for a very nice lantern from Bunny Fufu's Thresh. And right here, Cloud9 could have actually escaped this pretty even. Meteos was going to be able to complete his recall, and Impact was most likely dead. But Jensen thinks he can get an assassination off, overestimates his damage. Pobelter has some magic resist because of that Athenes and some self-shielding, able to keep himself alive. And that makes it go bad for Cloud9, actually. Not the beginning, but the mid-fight decision by Jensen.
Yeah, that re-engage not working out as Immortals also picked up the Infernal Drake in the replay as well. So gold back to even, but 2 Drakes now from Immortals. Starting to feel like a bit more of a significant lead. And Cloud9 with the Baron up. They're going to clear out that Scuttercraft just to make sure they keep vision on the appropriate side of the map. We'll have Ocean Drake spawning next. But the first big fight, not a huge one, just a couple trades back and forth, but the win does go over to Immortals, who will hold the lead just barely at the 20-minute mark.
Yeah, and the Karma Rumble mid-game power spike is pretty real. It's being able to speed up Huni into these super flame spitters just feels rather impressive, but I think there will come a time where that falls off pretty substantially. When we get these Spectres, Cows, and Aegises coming in bigger, which Cloud9 already has completed actually, their teamfight damage is going to fall off a cliff actually. So I think Immortals is going to have to continue to push the pressure here.
Well, what we should do is Impact starting a bit of a split push here in the bottom side, but doesn't want to go too far forward. Pobelter actually has been answering this side lane, so able to efficiently farm 2 different side waves. Our Immortals with that double TP. Maybe that will be the deal breaker in the late game split push scenario, but as it stands, Immortals just trying to again move around, push the waves up, get some pressure, get some poke, and Cloud9 pretty much stuck here answering minion waves, which for them, I think is probably just fine. Everyone's still scaling. They'll happily wait till the next objective, I think, and will again kind of slow things down during this phase. Yeah,
speaking of scaling, Wild Turtle's build confuses me a little bit. A lot of times you'll see the Ghost Blade, and then it's like, all right, he's going Maw or Dusk Blade second. Or you go for the Essence Reaver, then your Zeal item, then your Infinity Edge. He's gone for Ghost Blade and then a Rapid Fire Cannon, which is his Zeal item. So he's gone a mix of both popular Jhin builds. So he's not super crit scaling, he's not super early game. He is just kind of existing on the map right now. I'll be curious to see how he completes that build, whether it's Duskblade style or if he goes right into an Infinity Edge and Essence Reaper.
Perhaps favoring maybe some mobility as Meteos gets tagged by a spear. Rylai's done for Rainover, so those spears could actually lead into some chases, but Wild Turtle not ready for a snare, just clearing out mid for now. Making sure he gets those. Where is Meteos going to get lanterned out? But again, Huni, Leandri's done as well as that Proto, but he is hurting everyone at this stage, despite the MI that exists.
Yeah, he really is, and I think Immortals needs to continue to push the tempo here. Infernal Drake, Ocean Drake, they should be trying their hardest to siege, but to Cloud9's credit, they picked a bunch of quality wave clear, and with Spirit Visage and Mercury Treads completed for Impact, he's a pretty good split pusher, so there's a chance Cloud9 could actually just be the ones to macro game, late game this one, and even though they're down in Drakes, they could potentially outscale.
Well, probably can't fall too far behind in objectives, but again, there aren't any really threatening at this stage, so Jensen is going to continue clearing out. Does have a Lich Bane, so if Cloud9 do win a fight, those turrets will fall pretty quickly to the combined might of Cloud9 as it stands again. Just clearing out wards, making sure no one gets caught. Both teams doing a pretty good job keeping some vision up, although Rainover and Adrian getting queued. Gonna find Meteos, tags him up, but there's the Lantern again. Zara ulti burn, but it's not enough. Meteos! Oh, he has to flush out of the way, but now the Jhin ulti opens up. Pogarth around the side as Huni comes in as well. Sneaky gonna go down. Pogarth will claim that kill as Jensen almost gonna get sniped. He's forced to flush out.
Wow, everyone on Immortals piled in there. Double TP used from Pobelter and Huni there to really get in on Cloud9's backline. Sneaky used alt, flash, heal, and really everyone on Cloud9 was using their flash to escape and still couldn't do it. 23 minutes, they get a big fight, and they turn for Baron. But C9 might be trying to stop this. Impact, Bunny, and Jensen are going to be here.
Jensen's here as well. They can't see them. Vision wears off for now, but Impact now going to go in. The Baron awfully low. They probably can't take it. Impact, he's just going to try for a steal, but he doesn't get it. Bunny, make sure he gets out safely.
Yeah, noble attempt by Cloud9, but smart play by Immortals there. Instead of trying to peel for a fight on a 22-minute Baron, which they only have so much time on before they get chunked down, recognize that Meteos is dead. The steal is pretty much an impossibility as long as Rainover times it, and they get it.
This is how it started, though. Meteos is too much to chain CC.
And there were too many plants on the Lantern, so he flashed away afterwards. But the delay while they were trying to wait for Meteos to come to them gave time for the double TP from Huni and Pobelter to really get in there. And I think a smart item choice by Pobelter as well. He had built up the components of a death cap, but decided to complete Void Staff first because of all the magic resist stacking that is obviously going to be coming from Cloud9, and that allowed him to do some more damage in the last fight.
And Immortals now powered up with Baron, going to knock down their 6th turret of the game. They just plow through mid for 2 as they're going to look to break here as well. Don't forget that bottom inhib is still exposed, so Immortals breaking here means a whole lot.
Yeah, Cloud9 getting run over a little bit. We knew they kind of had the scaling, but they couldn't keep up their wave clear, and Immortals was able to find the fight. Immortals still playing very aggressively with this Baron.
Yeah, Huni is playing frontline Rumble right now. Just not afraid to go in at all. Plenty of protection as well. And that's inhib going to be falling down. Cloud9 can't defend that one. Sneaky, it's a snare. And Immortals might just go straight down the bottom. There's a huge wave built up.
And it's a pretty awesome poke composition from Immortals because Zyra is such a great counter initiator. So if C9 does try and go in, they're going to have to go in through a Zyra.
He just wants it, but Adrian only wants to get knocked back. He just ultis for protection. And Impact eating damage on the front line. Jhin ulti opens up. There's one. 2 lands on a Bunny. Equalizer down. They're going to try to stop him. Last bullet hits Impact, but Immortals are just straight in for it. Jensen sums up Huni on the front line, but Impact tanking a lot of damage from all those APs. Cloud9 low. They might have to back away here.
It's such a massive empowered minion wave, though, that's been just moving into the base. It gives them enough time to take down that second inhibitor in such a successful push.
Meteos locked down as well, but will escape this time. Jensen has the ulti. Does he fancy it?
Want the flank. Immortals is really low.
Yeah, Impact goes in. They're maybe looking for Wild Turtle, but he gets out of the way. Rainover's going to clear as well, and Jensen cannot find a target.
Jensen was a little bit too low to be able to teleport into a dangerous location. He's also gone for the Lich Bane Roa build instead of going for an early Zhonya, so he can't make those risky plays teleporting into the middle of the team. Maybe they can get an Ocean Drake after this one, but at what cost? They lost 2 inhibitors.
This is the consolation prize. Cloud9 will collect the Ocean Drake for themselves, but Immortals, gold lead's not even really there. They just have honestly been outplaying C9 on the map and using an exquisite looking comp to just run through 2 different inhibs. This is a... If you thought the first inhib was problems for both these teams, Cloud9 have so much mid-game pressure to go through now.
Yeah, and this looked a little bit more like the Immortals we saw last split. They've been playing maybe a little bit more measured in some of their games here, but it just felt like they were playing incredibly fast. And that's what I always like to say when talking about Immortals, is how fast they can play while still being mostly clean. They play at such a pace that the other team will be making big mistakes because Immortals makes very fast decisions that are usually right. And that's what happened when they're able to make the initiations happen in the mid lane, the way they turn for Baron, and the way they cycled into the 2 inhibitors here. All very fast and good from Immortals. Now with Baron still being up for another 10 seconds, they'll have one wave to crash into this next turret and maybe get even more.
Well, big credit to Immortals' decision making, but this one is thankfully very easy. They'll just walk through top lane with 2 other waves pressured by Supers. Immortals just going to charge forward and try and do this the old school way. Again, the wave clear is pretty much there for Sneaky and Jensen, but Immortals are happy to wait for that pressure to just fire in.
Yeah, and with 2 exposed inhibitors, it's a little bit easier for them to get the flank. Meteos was going for a flank. Bunny has to pull him to safety. So difficult for Cloud9 to get in safely.
Yeah, I mean, Bunny has been great on the exits there with the Lantern, but kind of needed at this point because C9 do need to be checking and looking for opportunities. Gianolti, they're going to poke him out. Sneaky, forced to burn the spell shield and the ultimate already. Last few bullets going to get tanked by Impact. Meteos on the side trying to do some work with Impact. Again, taking up too much damage. Huni goes golden in the front lines, but Adrian's been picked out. Zonius as well has already finished one. Huni, though, is going to go down, and Cloud9 starting to fire back. Pobelta eats a stun, but the Zyra ult is massive on the front lines, and Cloud9, they just can't complete the rest of his kills, but Jensen, he wants in.
Wants in. Can he make it?
Meteos back in again, but Rain overtakes him now. Jensen off to the side, but goes a little too far forward. Bunny trying to make a hero play, but it's going to cost him his life, and Jensen's too far to the left.
Yeah.
Sneaky under his turret, cannot escape.
I mean, that was not a good start to the fight from Immortals, but they have the lead and they're willing to push the tempo.
Spear! Doesn't go for it. Jensen
Jensen's
actually
fast.
back. Rain over hops away. Might die here. Shield's good there from
Keep
Karma.
hopping. Hop away.
Got too much healing. Adrian gonna threaten, and Immortals low, but they're gonna keep going. Jensen flashes in. A desperate
my
play,
God.
but he's got snared up. Adrian's gonna take him down.
They're still going. It's just Sneaky. They're actually trying to take the last Nexus turret. Teleporting it on Jin Trap.
Almost enough. As Huni, the most aggressive of plays. Protobelt's in, Bunny back in. These death timers aren't that long.
This is just mind-bogglingly risky from Immortals, but this is how they can play sometimes. They're feeling so comfortable, but they are right on the edge of getting full wipe.
Oh,
They haven't happened yet.
Adrian, now gonna die, maybe. Yes, does fall down. Ran over the next target. Meteos gonna bump him back in, but that's not enough for the kill. Meteos actually collects the double and might look to escape with his life. Huni, though, getting chased down by Impact, while Turtle takes out Sneaky on the back end, and the next is still exposed. This isn't enough.
Turtle, get him!
Bunny's gonna shoot him down. Also get shot down.
Hooney's still alive, by the way.
And now hitting the Nexus. I think Immortals have won the game. Jensen gonna try and stop them, but Huni just a little too far ahead. Pops the shield. Radiant's gonna cancel it down. They are gonna get him, but Pobelta, look at it!
Oh my goodness.
And it does end. Oh, baby.
Yeah, pretty big smile coming up from Pobelter. You know how a lot of times in League of Legends casting, you think, okay, they got a few inhibitors down, they're low. The smart play here is to recall, get your health back because the game is pretty much sealed. Immortals didn't care about any of those things. They said, you know, we could probably end the game here, even if it will cost all of our lives and end our kill sprees and give Cloud9 a chance to come back in the game. But they're Immortals.
I mean...
So they continued to push through. They had like one person die with Huni, and they're able to end the game before 30 minutes.
I mean, pretty unlikely, even in that spot if they get wiped, for Cloud9 to win the game. But it is a risk that Immortals didn't have to take. Instead, they do the Immortals thing. Just take risk after risk after risk. And you said it already. They play fast, they play loose, they usually execute well. That was some pretty nice execution on the back end.
Yeah, Pobelter didn't die. Wild Turtle didn't die. Rainover only died twice. Like,
pretty Immortal indeed. Immortal securing the game 1 victory. So let's send it to Dash for some in-depth analysis.
Thank you very much, guys. I like Jat's reaction to that game.
That game was pretty. 8-minute inhib trade.
There was so much craziness that happened in this game, right? We had a couple things that rarely happen in a professional game of League of Legends happened in this game itself, right? The initial 8-minute inhib trade was absolutely nuts. Just the fact that that's a lot of times we'll see teams threaten the inhib turret, maybe even take the inhib turret, but very rarely do we see teams opt into the full inhib trade and then even threaten the
Right,
Nexus
that's where I was
turrets.
really like, they were pinging Nexus before they finished the inhibitor. They're like, we're ending now. We don't want to play
Yeah, it's like, what are you guys doing? Because what's so crazy to me is when you look at this replay, you see how ahead Immortals is on taking this inhib. They could have backed and protected their inhib. They could have just taken a free inhib.
Yeah, C9 is moving very slow on this
Right,
because you
C9
can
starts
see
backing
they're
up.
already attempting to back in order to save their Nexus, which means the amount of time
It
it's
shows
gonna take them.
a burning desire to win. You see the next step that you gotta take.
That's
how they play.
True to Immortals
They're
form,
hungry.
this is the way they play. This is if they backed, it wouldn't be an Immortals game, right? So I guess that is entirely fair to say. But this just meant that it was a very interesting setup for the initial stages of the game because both top laners were then relegated to farming these super minion waves for 4 minutes straight.
But the problem is that this does not benefit Cloud9 at all. You're looking for a pick count, so you want as many options as possible, particularly ganking the top lane with Trundle. If Rumble does not have summoners, he's a free kill on every single port. Instead, by trading inhibitors, Rumble's stuck in the Nexus every single time, so you're already losing out on a possible pick. You're not going to be able to pick the Karma when she goes so much magic resist with a Gragas as well. And then the bot lane, all they have to do is play safe and use TP. So it's a terrible decision for the Cloud9 squad.
Right, I think that's why you saw the game kind of stall out for a long time where there wasn't a ton of kills. I mean, you have what should be a very active comp with C9, and they just can't do anything because you're basically playing with half the map. You only have 2 lanes to really work with.
Yeah, it's interesting because the game state is even at this point, right? The teams have traded the exact same objectives. However, it's benefiting one team more than it is the other. And so that's where you get into some very interesting discussions about team compositions, the way that they need to play the map. And that's the reason why Immortals does get slight advantages out of this.
What ends up happening is the game becomes more of a 5-on-5 focus. The lanes get thrown out the window. And now the Immortals composition is just going to outclass the Cloud9 one every single time. Zyra, Rumble is practically enough to win almost any 5v5.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that you would maybe point out in the Immortals comp that don't necessarily love is how magic damage heavy it is, but they're able to work around that, and Jhin does, I mean, late game put out a lot of it hits hard, so they didn't seem to have a problem with the fact that they were magic damage heavy. But ultimately, as we see the team comps here on the board, we didn't really see the 2 team comps actually interact with each other until our first blood, which came around the Dragon Pit at like 17, 18 minutes into the game. This is going to be a 2-for-1 in favor of Immortals.
Right, so it starts out kind of around the Dragon Pit with Impact getting caught out. He flashes out, and they're kind of out. They want to turn it back onto Rain over here, and they do a really good job just kind of picking and blowing him up. And then this is where the fight kind of continues with the Huni flank. He drops his Rumble ult. It's not the best one, but it gets a lot of summoners out of C9. Yeah. And this is where Bunny Fufu turns into a babysitter and spends basically the whole rest of the fight just saving people. Yeah. Gets sneaky away from the Zyrogen that were left on that side. And this is where we kind of see that Jensen's really not going to. This is like the
Jensen
first time.
had a rough game.
I was going to say, this is where you really see he starts struggling. Like, that's not the worst play idea where, like, you know, Huni and Pobelter are chasing down the rest of your team. You're going to port back in and look to turn it. But the rest of C9 was still waiting in the brushes, and Jensen just went way too soon.
I don't like it at all. The mid lane was being pushed by the Jhin. Could have just easily defended, maybe give up the Trundle, because Trundle could just stall out the entire time by pushing a wave, and then the top lane is going to get crashed, then you can actually just go and defend that wave as opposed to trying to get more kills, because you already got the kill, and it was good from Cloud9 to be able to collapse through the blind side, because Immortals did not see that the Sivir and Thresh were coming in through the blind side, and that's how they got the easy kills. But a little bit more composure is what I'd say Cloud9 is in order for.
Yeah, that was the first real action in the game in terms of brawling. However, it wasn't necessarily the break point. The break point came 23 minutes into the game where Immortals is going to pick up a 2-for-0 in the mid lane and then swing that over to the Baron and pick it up.
Yeah, right. Once again, just really good vision control from Immortals here. They're able to pick off Meteos basically right away at the start of this fight, and then this is just a monster flank from Huni, gets a ton of damage down on everybody. Fight's over. Jensen manages to flash out and live, but there's not much that they can do with only Impact left as your front line to try and contest that Baron. And I think the word you used, Crumbs, was great with composure, because it seemed like C9 just rolled over after that. With TF and Sivir, you think they can kind of wave clear, but Immortals got so much off that Baron. They got like 4 turrets, 2 inhibs, and they were pressuring the 5th top inhib turret. Well, I was gonna say 5th turret.
Oh, the 5th turret. Okay, I was like, how'd you go from 2 inhibs to 5?
Just math, James. I'm an analyst.
That pick came about from the previous Baron control that Immortals had gained. They had a lot of warriors around the red side, and they're poised to focus on the Barons. That's why they're waiting around middle, waiting for Cloud9 to react. They overcommit, they get caught around middle, and through the wards that they had, which were pretty sneaky wards that in a common place a regular pink ward wouldn't be able to see, so you'd have to have either your sweeper on or the Raptor passive to be able to tell where the TP was coming from. And that TP, a flanking Rumble that got so far ahead from the inhib trade lane swap, is just going to obliterate a team comp like the one that Cloud9 has, which is all really immobile. A champion like Sivir, Trundle, just can't get past the equalizer. It's very difficult, even through the speed up.
Well, Huni's going to get that player of the game honors 1, 2, and 7 on that Rumble, as you mentioned. some pretty key ultimates, maybe not the one we saw near the Dragon Pit, but the remainder of them pretty big. And then, of course, just his frontline play with Rumble. You know, that's such a delicate champion to play in the frontline because of the fact that you can be blown up, but...
I really like the combination that we saw with the Rumble and Karma, though. Karma speeds up the Rumble, and she went with the Athene's Grail as a first build, which we've seen a little bit in the LCK, and it just gives so much extra healing to the Rumble that he gets so tanky that it's really annoying to try to deal with. With the Proto Belt in your face, he's so fast and against a low-range composition.
Right, I was
You're
going to
gonna
say,
get mauled.
especially against Sivir, when he has this Flame Spitter on, he's running at you, you can't possibly trade back because he just has a shield, so you have to wait for the shield, and then from there...
That
got
along with the number of
shields,
times that we saw an Immortals member sneaking away from a fight with like 10% health, most of the time was due to Karma shields that were coming through, C9 not being able to proactively assess how much damage they'd need to deal in order to eat through that shield. I gotta move us ahead. Smoothie is going to be subbing in for game 2. No surprise there. That's pretty standard C9 stuff. But I do want to ask you guys, quick hit, what does C9 need to do based on this first game to come back and take us to game 3?
I think they need to regress to the formula that was working for them before, which involves a lot of control mages. The Twisted Fate, we saw it on Friday. It didn't work very well. It just got punished time and time again. I want to see Jensen go back to those strong mages that are going to hit a really strong spike in the mid game that can just carry for themselves. Twisted Fate is a champion that needs a lot of teamwork. If the opponents don't give you that room work, those picks to work with, it's just not going to snowball. And a team like Immortals, while it can work if you have the right comp, going for an inhibitor trade is just not where your right mind is at. So just go with more wave clear and protect the game. You have Sivir. You can stall out and just play the 5v5.
I think a big part of that is just because they were on red side, they had to ban 3. They banned the Ryze, Azir, and Vladimir. Coming on to blue side now, they should be able to take some of those away. Hopefully, I doubt Immortals bans the same way, so hopefully they can get a really early first pick, something for Jensen to get very comfortable on.
All right, so it starts in Champ Select, craft a different comp. Let's look at the 5v5s. We'll see if C9 can take us to a game 3. We're going off air for just 3.5 minutes, but when we come back, it is that game 2 of Cloud9 versus Immortals right after this.